right, it's 2 after the hour, and we have a quorum with Emily and me, so I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'm going to share my screen here. Can everyone see the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the agenda for our meeting. Shannon is monitoring passively, recording, I guess, but is still recovering from a busy week of town meeting, as is the entire town staff. So
Yep.
Shannon did advise me that in addition to approving the minutes, we need to do a quick recap of the May 6th minutes because that meeting was inadvertently not posted by with the town clerk.
Okay.
If I do this, I'm just going to go over and show those minutes for a second. And then we can just use those to kind of walk through them. Okay, so should we share here? Okay, so can you guys see these are the minutes from May 6th? So just in the interest of following the town clerk's request, basically the meeting on May 6th focused on the public workshops and our plans for engagement. And so we both spent a bunch of the time speaking about the April 30th workshops and recapping how those had gone, sharing feedback on those, and then talking about what form the exercises at the May 28th workshop would take. And that was really the bulk of the discussion. We also spent time talking about what we can do to ensure kind of good participation from a community standpoint in the upcoming engagement opportunities. So that was the focus of that meeting, and hopefully that is satisfactory for the town clerk. I'll just say to anyone on the line, looks like we have Linda and Allison who are not exactly outsiders. If you have questions on that topic, please raise them during the input session at the very end of the meeting. But otherwise, if Emily, if you're comfortable voting to approve those minutes for those two meetings, then
Yeah. Approved.
okay,
Good recap.
I support as well. So it's unanimous. So the next item on our agenda is the ears in the community. So Emily, you want to go ahead and just share any thoughts or things you've heard?
Yeah. So everyone is really excited about the revised survey. I have been trying to get that out through various sort of personal outreach and then have contacted the PTG organizations again. And I'm hoping to get in touch with Dr. Hunter for her to put that in her weekly newsletter. It's likely too late this week because I think those go out Friday. So really trying to drum up good feedback for the survey, but no specific commentary otherwise.
Okay. What I'll say is, so this morning I sent out links to the survey based on the feedback that Emily and Reed provided to the draft to everyone on the stakeholder list. We had a group of people from the Warner's Pond, I think it's called Partners for Warner's Pond, but they are different from the Warner's Pond Task Force. They asked to be added to the stakeholder list. They were added, 3 names. So I sent that out to everybody. So that's good. I also bumped into Tyler Spring from the Concord Business Partnership, and he said he'll be sure to push that out to everyone in their membership. And interestingly, I was at a meeting this morning of the library. I'm on the board of the library, and it was our development committee meeting. And I mentioned at the end of the meeting, I said to everyone here, be sure you go to mci-concord.org and fill out the survey. And one of the members of the committee, who's a pretty wired younger parent in town, said, kind of like she said, are these survey results really going to be used by anybody? And I said, absolutely. She says, because I've got a big list of people I send like town updates to every couple of weeks. And if you want, I can plug this, but I don't want to do it if the results are just going to be ignored.
Mhm.
Absolutely not. I said, we really genuinely, truly want it. But I was kind of surprised that anyone would even have that slightly cynical thought about like, we're just like pretending to do a survey, but we're not really going to use the results. So as we communicate, I think we should be sure to make it, state the obvious, which is we're going through the process because we really value the input and we want the input. So that was kind of an interesting just comment from someone who is pretty well connected in town.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I'm not surprised at the comment. I mean, I take it to like the next step of after completing the survey. Hopefully there's belief that we're asking people to do the survey for a reason that's going to formulate our opinion for the select board. But it's I think overarching theme is a lot of this is out of our control, right? So I'm not super surprised by the comment.
I also heard there was something in Boston.com today or in the last couple of days. I haven't seen it about Maura Healey kind of taking control of land throughout the Commonwealth for housing. And so someone asked me, so is she taking some of the MCI land for that? And I said, I haven't seen the story, but I said, to my knowledge, no, she isn't. We're going through our process, and there's an expectation we're going to have a lot of housing on our site, but don't believe that the governor has done anything with regard to MCI Concord.
Yeah, I'll send you, John, that article. It came out Tuesday. My friend just sent it to me. I have not had a chance to read it yet.
Okay.
It's also, there was a press release from the state as well.
What did it say?
I can share it with you all. It essentially says that the state has identified 450 acres of state-owned sites that they would like to be future housing developments. It doesn't explicitly say that it will be. It essentially just says that there are a series of sites that are earmarked for that potential future. Let's see. I can't share it via chat, but I can share it with you via email.
Okay.
It lists a whole kind of range of sites.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I was at a lunch yesterday and heard Maura Healey speak. Nothing specific to this, but just, again, emphasis on our need for housing. Emphasis on, everything's can't be sort of built to the perfect sustainability specs that are ideal for the community. And she also spoke a lot about the state's drive to help, office buildings convert to multifamily. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Next on our agenda, we have recap of recent workshops and community input. I guess, Rhiannon, should I hand that over to you?
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I can share this is the link to the press release site. So they identified a series of sites that will support housing. And then here it says looking for further ahead. Several additional sites with housing potential ranging in size and scope will be available to developers as soon as late summer 2025 into 2026. And so MCI Concord, they note that the town of Concord is undertaking a planning and zoning study for redevelopment. And then list a range of other sites. Yeah.
Does that link go to our website, our committee website?
It does not. It goes to the state's website, which I think might go to, it goes to the town's website, which automatically redirects to our website. And for whatever reason, we've been having some security issues in our office. So I can't access the MCI Concord site right now, but we're working on it. It works on everyone else's.
That's very funny.
So just me, just our office. All right. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and share an update on the surveys that have been taken so far. And then John, thank you so much for sending out those stakeholder emails this morning. Since you sent out those emails, and we can circle back to this at the end of this slide deck, we have gotten already an additional, I think, 35 survey responses. So this is already out of date, but luckily we're using Google Slides and Google Sheets, so we can really easily update those tables and things.
Were you sorry? How many responses?
So total responses, I think we have, let me go to that now. we have 73 responses.
Okay.
Since John sent the email, I think when I had last checked, there were 70. So since John has sent the email, there have been 38.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've summarized this in this slide deck, but I'll share links with you all so that you have them to the raw data. So this is all news that you've seen per our Monday presentation. There's been outreach to the various stakeholder groups. Postcards were mailed to Concord households ahead of the workshop. And then there have been many website visits. We missed you yesterday, John, when we had the podcast recording. Your name came up multiple times during the recording, so you're famous. But Megan already suggested that it would be nice to have you to host you in a week or so. So okay, so again, information that we already know, we had about 40 virtual attendees and 150 people in person. In the in-person conversations, just to quickly summarize that, there was it really pointed to this idea that mixed use idea, that it not just be housing, or it not just be commercial, or it not just be open space, resonated with folks in those conversations as well. And then online, so this has been updated as of 11 a.m. today, but we are still getting survey responses in. So this is changing by the minute. There is, and I'll show you in a bit more detail each of the responses, but there's a lot of, so people are generally less supportive of the civic and institutional campus, and I'll show you a little bit more why in a moment. A mix of support for the Center of Commerce and also the mixed use neighborhood. So if you remember back to Monday's conversation, on Monday when we had about 20 responses, there was a lot more support for this scenario. There's increasing support for this scenario as we get more survey responses in. And so just to dig into the civic and institutional campus, these are directly pulled from that the survey instrument, and so we can really easily update these as we get more responses. What is striking to us is not only that so 1 means that it's not aligned with your vision for the site, 5 means that it is aligned with your vision for the site, that there is a significant amount of consensus between folks, between residents, about this just not being what they imagined the site would be.
You think that 37% does say significant consensus that does not?
Yeah, you'll see, because when we go through the other scenarios, there's a very different response in those different groups. But so like if you look at this chart, there's a clear bar that is like communicating that it's less of a preference versus what I'll show you in a moment, which is definitely more distributed. And so the things that the people who said that they really liked it, and the people who said that there are things that work about it, said that they really enjoyed the emphasis on housing and civic spaces. These are directly taken from people's comments, but generally capture what has been said. This person liked that the housing is mostly buffered by Route 2, by the civic buildings. They liked that everything in the scheme would enhance West Concord businesses rather than compete with them. A lot of people said that what they liked about the scheme was community facilities, open spaces, chances for recreation. A few people talked about this as being an appropriate scheme because of the level of housing. And then also a lot of folks reinforced this idea of training a local workforce as being something that was interesting to them. The things that people took issue with or thought could be improved. One person who really liked the scheme and chose this as very aligned with their vision also recognized that the town would need to make more revenue than the scenario provides. Another person who was very against the scenario said that spending state taxpayers' money on a dilapidated facility to be reused feels wasteful and unnecessary. And so that goes back to the adaptive reuse idea. There were a lot of people who said that they'd like to see more revenue generating uses, and then also a lot of folks that flagged that this would be burdensome. On the precedent front, the images so far, or the kind of like preferences around each of the images. The most interesting one for folks was this idea of like more flexible event lawns, spaces where you can engage in a lot of different programs. And then second is this idea of bringing in recreational fields and courts. Third is to create more pocket neighborhoods. And there was a lot of love for Concord Mill Run and Concord River Walk. On the vibrant center front, so this is the one that leans into more commercial uses, there isn't a clear column that really, takes a lot of the votes, although the people that said that it's, a four, there was about 31% of people that were in support of it. And so if you were to kind of split these into, 4 and 5 being generally aligned and one and 2 being not, generally not aligned, it's kind of a mixed bag at this point. So no clear sense of how people feel about this scenario. What works about the scenario, a lot of folks talked about this idea of commercial not just being about retail, but also about innovative spaces. And then this person also liked the idea of having multifamily uses and affordable housing. Someone liked that it creates tax revenue and contains community facilities that their family and they could use. I think a lot of people also liked that the tax revenue would support the kind of feeling of a tax burden by residents today. And then also what works a lot, someone mentioned that there's more housing and activities that are available close to housing, and that this innovation center is close to mass transit. So it's like this really nice idea of an innovation district that doesn't require you to have a car, and then also that people can live there and have everything they need close by. What could be improved? There was a lot of feeling that this could be better connected to West Concord Village. And then also, does this scenario start to create some of those competing uses to West Concord businesses? Someone mentioned that they would like to see more tax benefits to existing residents while still supporting low-income housing options. And then also, a few folks asked about just how we're showing visually the information and this feeling that I think the use of the word campus makes them feel like this is going to be a private district that isn't something that is publicly accessible, and they were challenging that or questioning that. On the precedence front, the most popular image here was about showcasing water infrastructure through landscape. And then second was this idea of more of a smart growth or mixed use development approach. And then last on the scenarios front, the thriving mixed use neighborhood. So this is where we originally had a lot more support for this, and that support is definitely changing. And similar to the previous scenario, it's not really clear how people feel about this one, although there is generally, if you were to start to split 4 and 5 versus 1 and 2, there is, clearly more support for these. It's just not, there isn't enough consensus to be able to say, this scenario has a lot of support. There were definitely arguments for and against. So here, a lot of folks referenced fiscal impact and net revenue positive needs, that it can be implemented quickly, and that commercial placed along Route 2 makes sense. Also, a few folks liked the amount of housing that could create a sense of community. There was also a lot of feelings, exactly the same topic, but feelings against. So again, this is where some of those tensions are really starting to occur, that, that there are a lot of people who think that this is detracting from the Concord neighborhood feel. And they'd like to see more of a street grid with single family duplex or townhouses, and no big box retail, that seeing those big commercial uses made them think that we might be suggesting that there are they're going to be big kind of commercial chain stores. And then a lot of conversation about too much housing and what its impacts would be on schools. And now that we have some of those answers as of post these meetings, which we didn't have in the moment, I think that we've worked that into our modeling to be able to show what those impacts will be and what those trade-offs are. And then another person said, let's reduce the housing by 50%. So on this front, and that, that really rings true in the way that people responded, especially on the topic of housing. And it makes me wish that we had, instead of showing a full range of different programs that could occur here, that maybe, we could have decanted this from the program conversation and said, what level of housing feels right? What level of, commercial feeling feels right? What types of open spaces feel right? Because, it'd be amazing to understand where folks' priorities lie. So, number 7, this idea of retail and dining was really attractive to people, and that was the most attractive on this particular precedent study. And then the idea of having more river access was appealing. The on the housing front, so when asked about 3 through 6, what really resonated with folks, number 4 was the one that resonated. So it aligns with this idea that people want to see a level of density that feels similar to Concord, to the kind of look and feel of a Concord neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, just to kind of caveat this information that I'm sharing today, this is all from the survey. We haven't merged this with the public workshop precedent feelings, but we will, once the survey closes, we'll go ahead and do that, and we can share the final responses.
Mm-hmm.
And so the emerging priorities still stand. This idea of wanting to provide attainable housing is critical. The desire for community supporting uses is appealing to a lot of folks. And then also a desire that the future development be fiscally responsive is also important. Okay. And what I'll share this with you all here too. So we'll of course over the next, once the surveys come in, we'll share this as one big spreadsheet with you all that is a kind of compendium of all engagement, but we can share all of the feedback with you. I think, John, going back to the point about, is this information going to be used? Of course it is. It's all being registered. It's all being, saved into one kind of large resource that we will continue to use and reference. And, we don't want to oversimplify what people are saying, but we also want to make sure that we understand generally what are the feelings that people have about all of these different ideas. So we have all of those responses. They're all anonymous, which is great. It means that people can share exactly what they're feeling, because that's what we want to know. And then this is from the workshop. So similarly, all of the kind of questions that we asked in the workshop are housed in this spreadsheet as well. So we can share that with you, so you can look at it and see what folks are saying.
That's great. It's really great.
Any questions about the responses? Go ahead.
I'm just trying to figure out, how will you take all of this structured feedback? And like, you had those 3 different charts that show the horizontal bars showing which of those sets of 9 images resonated most. You put all those together and say, of the 27, these are the ones that are most popular. Does that work? I mean, how do you actually, are we going to have a definitive answer that says this is the right mix? Or are we going to have to, I suspect there has to be a lot of kind of informed synthesis of it all, right? And then we're going to kind of say, here's what we think. But some members of the committee may draw different conclusions from all the data than others. Yeah.
It's a great question. I would say that to your first question about the precedent imagery, what is interesting about the precedent imagery is not only what are the most popular items that people respond to, but what are the things that people don't recognize as a priority. And so for us, that what is most helpful about those is to be able to say, like, generally, what are people responding to, and what do they feel relates to what they imagine the future of the site could be. It doesn't need to be related to each scenario. They really could be applicable to any of the scenarios. And so we'll share a summary of kind of like what are the things that rose to the top as part of that. And already when we were going through things, you could probably see that in part because it's town residents who already have homes in the town. The things that resonate with people the most are recreational facilities, river access, walking trails, park spaces. They don't have a need for housing. They don't have a need for some of the things that we're also asking about. And so, we're going to have to glean needs in another way for the housing side of things, or for the retail side of things. But so on the precedent side, it is very much about kind of like, what are the things that were very popular? What are the things that are less popular? And then also acknowledge the nuance to the responses there. On the scenario front, we went into this knowing that there wasn't really going to be a scenario that was like, everyone's going to love it. That is the one. And that's for a variety of reasons. One is that the site is very complex. Your community is very complex, and needs are very complex. And so but what we can draw from it are like, what are the things that people say are working or not working about each scenario that they might want to change, and then pull those into, okay, well, what does that mean for what we think the zoning requirements, the land use map needs to look like in order to respond to those needs. And so it's probably going to be picking and pulling from each scenario to make something that responds more directly to community sentiments. And then to your last point about that, you can take any number of what I've just shared as an advisory board and have different conclusions. I think we're going to do our best to summarize and to make those summaries be defensible in data, and to note how and why they're defensible. It's still easy to pick and pull the things that we all see based on our own biases, but we'll hope to kind of not pull our implicit bias into this as part of sharing that summary, and hopefully that helps you all.
I'm just looking at my screen here. It's you and me having a conversation. Hopefully other people listen to it at some point. So I have a couple of the questions trying to channel kind of other citizens. One is just in terms of the zoning and how the zoning might work. Will we be kind of partitioning the site and saying this will be zoned for housing, this will be zoned for retail, for example? Or will we say for the whole site, you can build housing, retail, commercial, etc.? Do you have a sense of that?
That is a great question. We could do either. Either is possible. And if you do, depending on which one you do, it grants you more flexibility in some ways and less control in other ways. So by parcelizing the site, you have more of that control over, that person who said, I really like that the commercial uses are along Route 2. The only way we're able to really meaningfully make that happen is to parcelize the site and acknowledge where certain uses happen. However, it also makes it difficult to, it gives you that level of control, but it also means that it's a little bit more difficult to get those parcels developed.
I would anticipate that's going to be one of the key questions here, is if we really are serious about rezoning at town meeting next year, we need to be sure we need to be sure that we know exactly where we want components to go. Right?
Well, it's even to do, I think that there's, we've listened to a lot of conversations you all had before you engaged us. And then also we've had our own experiences with other communities where like it does feel like a form-based zoning code could be appropriate here. And that means that, because I think that that's the thing that people think of when they when they consider their visions for what the site will be. A form-based code will allow you to ensure that you get the density that you feel is most appropriate, and the scale of the kind of experience of things without also communicating exactly what has to go where.
Bree, in your experience though, is that something that's typically done once we've engaged a developer, right? Or a developer has been engaged rather,
Um,
or not necessarily?
No, it's probably best for it to happen before a developer's been
Okay.
engaged. Usually if I think what you might be thinking of, Emily, is design guidelines or design standards. That's where
Okay.
like this is the type of light post and this is the kind of like spacing of said of like of a retail frontage to a a sidewalk edge. Those are decisions that are getting into a level of detail that would require something like design standards. But I think you could, oftentimes towns or communities will engage in form-based code before engaging a developer.
And then as we think about the Department of Transportation and the reworking of the Rotary, I mean, that's such a, I would assume with zoning, right, there's going to be flexibility in terms of like the ingresses and egresses at the site.
Yeah, I think it's easiest to stick with the ingress and egress that is currently on the site. Just because it'll be it's hard to add entry and exit points.
Okay.
And once you take them away, it's hard to add them back.
But it does seem like in scenario 3, for example, we've got a bunch of housing slated for, or illustrated as being in the parking lot, the existing parking lot across Commonwealth Avenue. If there's a big flyover that exits right there, then that may not actually be feasible, right? And that's where I think that we're going to have this quandary around zoning, whether to parcelize or not, because we may not know even a year from now whether DOT is going to require that for an off ramp or something, right?
Yeah, and that's why, I think that I hope I'm not being an overly optimistic person, but doing this work now I think that there's a high likelihood by doing this work now and by setting this vision now together with the state, even though it's a different arm of the state than Mass DOT, will set a vision that then Mass DOT will need to respond to rather than the other way around.
That makes sense. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The second question I was going to ask was around, again, this, I think I know this is more rhetorical, but the question of, once we get a sense for the mix of uses that people prefer, then the question of how much of each use, we don't really have, it's hard to get feedback from people on that, like how much is enough, how much is too little, right?
Yeah, so we're doing a little bit of we're working with the advisory board chairs to do a little bit of a study ahead of the land use subcommittee meeting that will start to dig into what those amounts look like, what that experience is. And so yeah, because it's really hard to know what does that feel like,
right,
when you're there.
right,
Easy to throw numbers around without like grounding them.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that was super helpful. I know that we have again, we don't always hew literally to the agenda, but we got feedback on the presentation from June 2nd. Are you looking for us to provide feedback right now, or?
Sure. You're welcome to. Yeah. I also asked Allison to join to talk a little bit more about the one last community engagement strategy item that we had on our list, which was the focus conversation. So happy to talk about that now or talk about that after the June 2nd feedback.
Why to do that now?
Okay. So Allison, I can start this and then let you take it away.
Sure. Yeah, I'm also in the car for dog-related reasons, but less tragic than my dog getting hit by a car. Sounds really awful.
Dogs are driving the world.
I
They-
know.
Ask any questions about dogs being allowed in the site.
There were definitely some folks advocating for dog parks.
Okay.
I was there.
It will be pet friendly.
It will definitely be pet friendly. It has to be. So we haven't had like the cat contingent come out asking for cat parks, which is good news, but could still happen. So the focus conversations, we had included in the engagement strategy that we want to have these focus conversations. As part of these focus conversations, it would be like one about, transportation related things. One would be about kind of more of the housing side. Another could be about the history. We have not landed those yet, and that's, I think for a variety of reasons. The workshops and, going about kind of technical assessment of each of the scenarios has taken a little bit more time than we anticipated. And then also we had, I think we were excited about the idea of wanting to include some kind of what we would call technical experts in each of those spaces. So like having someone join from Mass DOT for the transportation conversation, or having someone join from who has like, a historic preservation bent, whether that be from the town or someone outside. And so it's been a little bit difficult to go about that outreach to those folks too. And so we had a few different thoughts there. One is that we could still, because we're directing folks to the website, we could still have focus conversations, but those conversations at this juncture in this planning effort could be focused on just like, we've shared these scenarios, you've taken the survey, we're gonna give you a brief, like, this is what we're doing. Do you have any questions about this work? To give people the chance to continue to give feedback, and to and ask those questions that will help inform their understanding of this project and its outcomes. And that I think we could do before June 30th. It feels, I don't know why I'm saying January. It's clearly not freezing cold outside. So we could do that, and it's more about giving people the chance to best understand this and to make informed decisions about what they think of this place. Or I think that there's also I think it's less clear now, but it could also be something that happens as part of the shopping around of the ideas post the June 30th report out.
Do you have an opinion on that, Emily?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think it's good for like the sharing of knowledge, but how are we going to be soliciting opinions and feedback after June 30th, right? Because that's the time with which we're presenting or pulling together our final scenario, right?
Yeah, so I think it's both the time that you're pulling together the final scenario, but it might be a good moment for you to say, like, these are the things that we heard from folks. We don't feel like we have enough information yet to make an informed decision.
Yeah.
And this could help.
So I guess, is there room if we learn something interesting or get interesting feedback, is there room then to modify or change a scenario, right? Like I guess I think at some point we have to have kind of like an end date of like, this for now, here's where we are sort of with our recommendations.
Yeah.
So, I guess we do want to have sort of a running stream of commentary, right? This is going to evolve over the next 10 years, but I don't know, that's my, I guess that's my thought on it, right? I in terms of continuing to solicit feedback, and what do we do with that information at that point?
Yeah.
I feel, first of all, I agree with you, Emily, that it's funny. So I'm of kind of two minds on this question of timing. On one hand, I understand that our friends from agency are kind of gone after June 30th, sadly. Hopefully we could find a way to bring them back to continue the good work if we have follow-up work to be done. I think we will.
Agree. Yep.
But so yes, we do need to synthesize everything together in the next few weeks, right? That's a huge lift. On the other hand, I also feel like as a practical matter, there's going to be more discussion that's going to happen as we start to think about zoning. The planning board is going to have its own process to, prepare zoning for town meeting next year. And so I don't think the opportunity will be forever lost if we don't do it now. I kind of feel like again, this is my opinion. I think the survey is excellent, and I think the survey is going to gather really like genuinely useful information. We're already seeing it. I think it's really good. And so I'm trying to think like, what's the marginal value of trying to organize calls when, you know, that might be attended by an extra 15 or 20 people when we're trying to get feedback via the survey from hundreds, right? I guess I feel like the survey really is going to be our most important data gathering tool. And if the agency team is not confident that we already have kind of a good enough idea to really delve into more detail via those sessions, I'd be in favor of not trying to cram those in between now and June 30th, and instead, you know, spend more of their bandwidth on processing, analyzing, synthesizing, so that we come up with, you know, a set of recommendations that are truly reflective of what we've heard from the community. And I'm just not sure we get a lot of additional value from those more focused topics. It's my
I agree with you, John, because I also think timing wise, right? It's schools getting out, people are going to be traveling more. I think there's going to be less availability. Like we might even just have fewer participants in some of those calls.
Yeah.
So I think I tend to agree with you.
Yeah, I think that the intent also was less about it being a touch point for gathering feedback as much as informing the public about different, like a bit more in depth about those certain topics, which I think is something that could happen maybe more as a socializing of the plan, to share out like, here's what the conclusion and synthesis of all of that feedback we gathered,
right.
Was after the June 30th date.
Yeah. I think that
how do we feel like in to that point, Allison, like in terms of getting information out, you know, like what have we discussed creating like a Facebook page or something that could be updated regularly with sort of here's where we are, you know, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know who would maintain that, right? Is that someone on the community outreach committee posting updates? But just a thought in terms of disseminating information by that vehicle.
well, I think the first off, I think that's what our website is primarily, right? That's where
Yeah.
there's so much information there. But you're raising a question about post June 30th. What happens to that website, right? You know, I tried to
But I
start.
also think the website, sorry to interrupt, I think the website is fantastic, but I just think these days people, you know, you're scrolling all the time, right? People might want to just, oh yeah, this interesting thing happened. Okay. I don't know. Just as an enhancement, and maybe there's not enough information to come out, or just something to think about, I guess,
So
post June 30th.
Emily, I think we have a to-do list a to-do item, which is to figure out post June 30th.
Yeah.
What happens to communications, right?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. And I'll say too, Emily, as a very as a complete Luddite in website creation and working with websites, I don't know how to engage in websites. We made it in Squarespace, and that is a space that I actually can use because it's all it's pretty straightforward, and it's something that you can easily engage in. And so if the worry too is like the ability to update something that is a very odd space that we're not familiar with, it's quite easy to get to know and to be able to use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'm terrified of it, and it's
okay. One just thought, sort of going back to the survey, sorry, this is slightly off topic. I think at the bottom of the survey there's am I right that there's like a little demographic section, like, are you a resident of Concord? I'm wondering if we could and should enhance that to like get a little bit more profile information. And I'm thinking in particular of being able to use that as a tool for, you know, I'll say my age group of, you know, parents of younger children in town who are very vocal. They have a lot of ideas and they don't do anything about sharing those ideas, right? That's the biggest frustration with my peer group, right? A lot of opinions, but they don't go to town meeting, right? A lot of opinions, but they don't fill out the survey. So I don't know if we could have something that says like, hey guys, there's been 75 respondents of the survey and they're all over the age of 65. Like, I guess I'd throw that out there, John, to see what you think about that. But so it also is ensuring us that we're getting a good sample set of everyone in the community. And I know we wouldn't have that going back to the surveys that have filled out thus far, but
Can you remind us what questions are asked at the end? What are the demographic questions?
Yeah, so the demographic questions that are asked at the end is, what is your relationship to this project? So it's you can say that you live in, you can select as many as you'd like. You can say you live in Concord, you work or go to school in Concord, or that you live outside of, or that you visit Concord. And then you can also write in, so some people have written in that they live in Carlisle. I don't think we've gotten anyone who doesn't live in Concord quite yet, other than the Carlisle folks. And then the next question is, did you attend the in-person public workshops or the online public workshops? What is your age, and is there anything else you'd like to share?
so there is age.
There is
This
age.
age. Yeah, I'm trying to make a quick pivot table to see what the age range is. Let's see.
I guess I while you're doing that, Rhea, I think
Yep.
that is something that the committee this committee should be aware of, so that we can ensure Emily some balance, right? So if we were to see that, oh, it's all people who are 75 plus, let's say, right? Then we would want to be sure we're getting input, work even harder to get input from folks who are younger.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Is there other demographic information? Because you asked, do you live in West Concord, right?
We did. I don't think we asked if you live in West Concord.
There's work in West Concord, right?
Yeah, there's work in Concord.
Oh, in Concord, yeah.
Just Concord.
Would we want to try to just add a question to slice it more finely? I don't know.
Yeah. And that question would include whether you live, we could branch it so that it's if you live in West Concord.
Yeah.
Yep.
Would it be relevant to say, like, are you a parent of school age children? Or is that too fine? Do you know what I mean?
Actually, I think that'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That could just be a checkbox.
Yeah, so here's the general breakdown. Majority 45 to 54.
Oh, all right.
That's good That's good.
All right, good.
Yeah, it feels related to your demographics.
All right.
I do think it would be interesting to know if you are.
Rudy, you think I'm over 45?
I thought you just turned 30.
46 and proud.
Amazing. Yeah. Well,
I like the idea of adding a checkbox that says, I am a parent of school age kids.
okay, so it'd be
Yeah.
of aged kids. I live in West Concord. I work in West Concord. Anything else we would want to add?
What about, and just throwing this out there for opinion, like I am like an administrator in Concord or involved in, the recreational programming for the town.
What would that get at, Emily?
I don't know. I'm not sure. That's the only other thing I could think of. I mean, I guess you'd sort of expect to see those answers skewed towards heavier recreational use. I guess that doesn't really.
Mm-hmm.
How about I love dogs?
Do you have pet insurance?
Which one? Tell me the best one. That was the worst.
So I think those three questions I'll be interested to see.
Okay.
To be able to see how parents of school age children's answers compare. Or
And then
in West Concord, I think that's an important distinction, because I think people in West, the folks in West Concord understandably have a very strong stake in this, right?
Yeah. Is it just to put a finer point on I am a parent of school age children, is there value in us just asking, I am a parent of children under the age of 18? Or is that just because, like, if I just had a baby and so
Oh, good
my
point.
child's
Yeah,
not
good
school
point.
aged yet?
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. All right, I'll change that.
We say if children under 21.
Why? Because they always end up living at home after.
I have a 19-year-old high school senior.
This is being recorded for public consumption, John. Your poor 19-year-old. Yeah, that we could say that, or a parent or child
No,
of,
that's good. Yeah.
because it could also be that they live at home of
Yeah.
a child or children live at home. And it looks like Linda Escobedo has her hand up.
Linda?
Yeah, thank you. The questions just generated don't differentiate with those families who have children in the private schools from the public schools, if that's another data point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like you could almost branch, and it's
Does branching mean like another question appears if you check that box?
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So it's only, you're not going to get this question if you don't live in Concord. We don't really want to know about parents that have children under 21 if they don't live in Concord.
Good point. Yeah.
Or like to be asking the question again about working situations.
Okay.
Concord.
And these are optional responses, not required, so therefore we don't have to like capture all of the scenarios like.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Or
Not sure Google is sophisticated enough to do that, like immediate branching, but you could just sort, or is it?
that too. It can. Yeah, it's a
Oh,
new
cool.
feature. Allison, it's a new feature.
Oh, okay,
Very
cool.
cool. Yes, the branching was like a game changer. Yeah. But yeah, very, very new feature. Okay.
Thanks. That's a good suggestion. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we can make this edit either today or likely Monday morning.
Okay.
Depending on. Yeah.
Super.
Great.
If you could do it today, that'd be awesome because we'll probably get another 50.
I know you're gonna keep putting in the word out. Okay, we can try to do it today.
Okay, what do we get next on the agenda here? Over here. Discussion of the draft guiding principles. Actually, I'm sorry, feedback. I have one more point of feedback that I just wanted to share. I emailed you about this, but I am hoping that we can find a way to do kind of further analysis of different, I call it like boundary conditions, different levels of density. I know we're at 3, in terms of housing, 300, 500, 750 units. To me, all of that feels a little high. I'm just curious to know like what happens if you run lower numbers, and I don't know if John's model will be able to just kind of take new inputs, but it'd be kind of interesting if we could, even after you guys are gone June 30th, if we could have that model and be able to run different scenarios through it. That would be really helpful. You're muted.
We talked to the advisory board chairs about this on Tuesday or Wednesday. And that's what kind of sparked the idea of like just doing a quick study of what does the number of units that we're talking about look like on site, because it's like, we kind of show these buildings and it's not entirely like, if we were to pretend that the entire site is just houses, what does it look, how many single family houses could the site technically support? What does that look like? And then I think the same is true for so the idea of the 100 units, because then what I didn't clarify with you was whether or not your email included the West Junction Village number of units too?
I guess I'm not clear on whether we're gonna try to concentrate all of those units on that particular part of the site, or whether we're gonna seek flexibility to spread them out. I do like the idea of having, I really do believe that, affordability should be spread throughout the community, right? I guess I don't know how to answer that question, but
Yeah, the only reason I ask it too is because the West Junction Village site, I can't remember what the deed says, but the site can support 125, like the site that's the West Junction Village site. And I think the deed requires 80, and so that would just limit, it would mean only an additional 20 units beyond that if it is included.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, but I guess my point is, let's look at some smaller numbers and see if they still work from
Yeah.
an equity standpoint.
Yeah, I can talk to the Landwise team about it. I think the one thing that is the one thing about the scenarios as they stand right now that is helpful is that the one on the low end, the civic use site, which I think I can't remember if it's 200 or 300 units, is looks at like what would need it's this question of what would need to be true to make certain things work for each of the sites. And so, we need to figure out what would need to be true with the 750 units on the third scenario in order for us not to have to build a new school. Similarly, the 300 units that essentially is, once we get beyond that number, that's when you have to start thinking about impacts to school capacity numbers. And that's partly why we landed on that number, was both the West Junction Village captures 125. So it's an additional, I think 200 units, 175 units beyond that, which doesn't feel too crazy when you think about 50 acres. But I totally hear you on the kind of like density question. That's why we're doing that study on density, is to try to think of, what does that actually look like?
Right. Okay.
Especially given community feedback. A lot of people wanting to see more townhouses or duplexes or single family homes.
Okay.
Did I share with you, I came across something on the news about a community that was being built for teachers. So there was an affordability component for teachers, and it was the first of its kind. And I will find it. I'm forgetting which state it was located in, but it was basically that the value of houses had increased in this market, and teachers were unable to afford to live there, so the school systems were losing good teachers. But it was really cool concept about making sure there's dedicated housing for teachers in the community. So anyway, I'll find that development and share it, because I loved the idea of it. I love the idea of it, and that's a common challenge we have in Concord.
Yeah, I know Los Gatos, California they built like a mixed use development that was in partnership with a nonprofit developer for that. And then Bentonville, Arkansas,
I think that's it.
They have
Bentonville.
they have the benefit of, I don't know if you know what Bentonville, Arkansas is famous for.
I do not.
That is where the Walmart family is from.
Okay.
So they've been investing a significant amount of money into that community.
Yeah, I remember there was a big private component of that. I think it was Bentonville. Okay.
But it's still a great example, and we can definitely do that as part of our report out.
Yeah.
Maybe we get Walmart to install a big box store right on the site, and they can have some workforce housing right next door.
I will not allow you to do that, given the community feedback that we've learned so far.
Let's get a Walmart on 2229 Main Street.
Right.
The Walmart over there, and then
my daughter Daisy, who just graduated from college, her boyfriend works at the Walmart headquarters in Bentonville, so she's been down there several times.
And it's a very cool city.
It's an amazing place. Yeah.
It's a pretty cool city. I highly recommend going there. They've done some really nice things with development.
Shannon
let's go on.
Scott has also shared the example from Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, closer to home. Thank you, Shannon. Yeah, 48 unit apartment complex.
And that's, sorry, I can't read it because I'm driving. That's for teachers?
Yeah, that's the Martha's Vineyard Hospital,
Oh, cool.
but it's still, it's staff housing.
Same
so-
concept. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's same concept. That's great.
yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Shannon.
All right, let's go on to the guiding principles if we can. I don't
Yes.
know. Have you been on with other committees, Rhiannon, who have like dealt with these at all?
No, one moment. I can grab that and pull it into our slide deck.
Shannon tipped me off that's on page 51 of the slide deck.
Nice. Oh, thank you. A second.
I've got it here if you want.
Oh, my plan is to try to edit it together with you all.
Okay.
1 second. All right. Great. Okay. So these are the, and I wanted to be, I hope it was clear on Monday that there are the goals that the advisory board had pulled together that we thought were really thoughtful and nice and lent itself to the project in the process. This is what we imagine is really defining, it's something that you would give the developer to say, like, these are the things that we want to achieve with this development. And so it's more about the kind of outcomes that you'd like to see. And we already received the feedback, I think, from Patrick and a few others that, these are like, they're not offensive, but then is there a way for them to be a little bit more, like more specific in their nature so that it's not, that it's abundantly clear like what we're looking for.
Mhm.
Are these in order of preference?
They are not.
Okay.
And how would these be used? These would be shared with kind of planners in the future as we get more specific about what's going to be built.
Planners and whomever is developing the site. So if it's parcelized, then you could imagine that, however that land development strategy takes place, that these are the kind of core tenants that need to be included as part of each of those developments. So someone who is developing, let's say it's like one person gets one, a couple acre site, and that couple acre site is very much focused on housing. How are they meeting these development principles as part of their specifically housing development? And so it's both saying, like, just because you're building housing doesn't mean that you aren't thinking critically about what the experience is for people who are coming to this place for other things. Just because you're building housing doesn't mean that you aren't also responsible for ensuring that you're connecting to the community's identity.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I generally like the direction of these. I don't personally, I'm not ready to like start wordsmithing live right now. So I'd like to, I guess, have the option just to send you some thoughts prior to our next.
Of course.
Yeah, I can't, it's hard for me to digest these right now.
Absolutely.
Just
But
driving.
Emily, if you want to put your dog mom hat on, you can absolutely do that as part of these principles too.
Okay.
All right. So next agenda item was agency landscape plus planning communications updates. I think we've probably covered that at some point earlier.
I think so.
I think that kind of completes our agenda. Emily, is there anything else you wanted to cover that we haven't talked about already?
Are there extra postcards at the townhouse with the QR code for the site? I am so excited to go to the Thoreau Fun Fair tonight, and I was thinking I could hand some out there. Or did we use them all up at
Emily,
town hall?
I think we gave them the remaining ones out at town meeting.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Thank you. That's it for me.
Emily, maybe you could, there's probably a screen over at the Thoreau Fun Fair. You could probably put it up on the screen, a little invitation to complete the survey.
Actually, that's a good idea.
Maybe
Okay.
we could just
Or
send you
do we have sandwich boards? We don't have a sandwich board, do we, or do we?
We did for the first public workshop. That might be a Megan question because she took the sandwich boards down at the end of the evening. So I'm not sure where she.
Yeah, Emily, we do have one, but I'll note that the townhouse closes at 12:30 on Friday, so I don't know that anyone is there to be able to even give
Okay.
you one, unfortunately.
I'll find a way, or I'll just spread the word. So I'll
But
get
Emily, we do have a graphic that has, you know, the postcard with the QR code. And if that can just be
Right.
put up onto a screen in the room wherever the fun fair is happening.
Yeah, yes, it's outside. So I'm
Oh.
just not sure what like the AV situation is, and it's a whole chaotic to do. So it's probably too late to get a screen up, but I'll get the word out.
Okay.
Thanks,
Well,
Emily.
is there any public comment? Linda, you've been very quiet, hopefully listening closely.
I've been listening closely and thank you. Thanks for all the work you all are doing.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining us.
Linda Escobedo, do you have any comment?
Ditto what Linda just said. Thank you.
Okay. We love the Lindas to join our calls. This is great.
No. I've come to expect it. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. And just for the record, anyone whose name is not Linda is also welcome to join the call in the future. I think that's it then. So I think, again, if there are no further comments.
Closing the loop on those community conversations, we're going to table those because we're going to focus on the deliverable and getting the feedback from the survey, making sure that's well incorporated. I think when is the next community outreach subcommittee meeting?
The next, which subcommittee?
This one.
This one.
Probably in 2 weeks.
Because I was just thinking, at least for DJDS, how we could support, like thinking about what that engagement looks like ongoing, like past, we end on June 30th, but what does that look like for this committee to continue, and how do we share out the results of the plan? I think we're happy to help support that.
It's a really good point, Allison. Thank you. And
Yeah.
I'm just looking at my account. I don't have a date for a next meeting. So we have an advisory board
Yeah, we
meeting.
were doing once a month.
Okay. So does that mean
So I can add another one in 2 weeks.
I guess what I'm looking at here is if we have a advisory board meeting on the 23rd, could we try to do it kind of shortly after that, because that will then likely give us some direction on which to kind of make some decisions about communication.
Yeah, that works for us.
Just so you know, John and everyone, I'm on vacation that week of the 23rd.
Okay.
So I don't know if we want to do it
Want to do it the following week?
Sure.
Or should we try the 30th? Do it on the 30th?
Let's do it on the 30th is fine. Yeah.
That'll be agency's last day, so that would be actually a good time for us to say.
Quasi celebratory.
Yeah.
We're done with that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, Rhiannon?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. So should we say 12 o'clock?
That
Mike,
works.
Okay.
Is it possible to do it at 1 o'clock? I have a meeting
That
that's supposed to be going on.
Yeah, that works too.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. So why don't we say 1 to 2:30 on the 30th?
Perfect.
That'll be our wrap up of the current phase and kick off of the next.
Wonderful.
Okay. Beautiful. Well, then in that case, I think we're adjourned.